Welcome on into the Utah Blockcast. I'm Steve Bartle, Utah Insider for KSL Sports. Excited for this episode. Going to be switching it up a little bit. Been a lot of football talk. A lot of things going on this week. A lot of football stuff going on. Meanwhile, the basketball program. A lot going on there this season. Alex Jensen in year one at the helm of the Runnin Utes, and through 9 games, Utah's 6-3. And they've got a tough one coming up against Cal Baptist on Saturday. And so good time to welcome on the homie, Andrew Crowley, a.k.a. the Runnin Hoops Pod. Andrew, how you doing, man?
Yeah, it's nice that football has finally slowed down so that folks can focus their energy on basketball appropriately where it needs to be. But I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Well, good, man. That's good to hear. You're doing a great job with the Runnin Hoops podcast, obviously, and keeping everybody informed on the basketball program while, football is hogging the spotlight and all that. But no, really excited to have you on and to kind of do a little progress report type of episode where, we kind of talk about the 9 games that we've watched so far. And if we want to go back to the exhibition games against Nevada and Oregon, we can include those too. But, 9 games into the season and kind of getting a better feel for what this team is about. I figured this would be a great opportunity to have you on and just to kind of, have a conversation about Utah basketball in year one so far under Coach Jensen. So, through 9 games, Utah is 6-3 with, wins over San Jose State, Weber State, Holy Cross, Sam Houston State, the Purdue Fort Wayne Mastodons, and Ole Miss, with losses to Cal Poly, Grand Canyon, and California. Biggest surprise among those wins and losses is what?
The biggest surprise is the loss to Cal Poly.
Yeah.
And the biggest surprise win is probably Ole Miss. I think, folks, if you were looking at the Acrisure series, you were thinking, look, if we can get a split and that splits Grand Canyon, you beat Grand Canyon and you lose to Ole Miss or Iowa, I think a lot of people would have taken that, expected that. But yeah, I mean, I think, they had a shot there to go 6-0 to start the season in these bye games. And, you just can't let a team shoot wide open threes for 40 minutes and expect that, they're not going to make a few of them.
My goodness, dude, that game was baffling, truly baffling. Obviously losing to Cal Poly 92-85. The Mustangs just shot lights out. What they finished shooting 61.7% effective field goal percentage, which is just an absurd number. 14 of 25 from 3-point range. Yeah, they had a lot of open looks, and Utah didn't do much to try and take those away. So pretty baffling loss there back on the 20th. But they went to that Acrisure series, and obviously I think against Grand Canyon sort of continued to play the way that we felt they would, but then somehow, provided a real surprise knocking off Ole Miss. And, Ole Miss, I think it's clear that they may be dealing with some inner struggles. I don't know if you've seen the clip of Chris Beard and AJ Storr. Things sound nice and rosy out there under Beard, but we'll see what Rebels will be this season. But I still think that was a very valuable win for Utah because we saw actual improvement. We saw progress. We saw a lot of good things in that game that Utah can build on. And then, getting into the game against Cal, I thought we saw a continuation of some things, but then, some issues and hiccups in that second half. So, based on the last 2 games, Cal and Ole Miss, how do you feel about the progress that we're seeing with this Utah basketball squad?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is that you want to be able to watch this team and feel like Alex Jensen's message is getting through.
Yeah,
and we really saw that with Ole Miss. I thought we would see that a little bit more with Grand Canyon, Given that they lost to Cal Poly, like one of my takeaways from the Cal Poly game was, okay, now Alex is going to have their attention, right? And it was a little bit of a continuation of the Cal Poly game versus like some sort of referendum on the Cal Poly game. But I think that they've now put together back-to-back performances against the Power Five where you can feel like, okay, this team has the ability at times to hang. And now they've just got to, I'm still not convinced we've seen them put together a good full 40 minutes.
Right.
Like even against Cal, the last 2 minutes of the first half, the last 2 minutes of the game, awful. I mean, just as bad as it could go. The rest of it was, I think, acceptable, and they had a chance in that game. They had a chance. And so, I'll be interested to see how they come out against Cal Baptist. I know you're sleeping on the Lancers, Steve, but don't sleep on the Lancers. This is a good team here.
Right? How many Cal teams are there, Andrew? I mean, we are about to hit every single one of them this season.
We might. We could be de facto Big West, whack.
Just
friends.
the Cal State champs out here in Utah.
That's right.
Yeah, I think you hit it on, the nail on the head there with the Cal game, right? We saw some really good stretches. There was a stretch, I can't remember if it was I think it was the second half, where Utah strung together multiple defensive stops through just sheer effort and cleaning the glass. I thought it was the best defensive effort that we've seen through 40 minutes from Utah. And cleaning things up on the defensive end of the floor, I think, is where Utah has made the most progress over the last couple of games after that Grand Canyon game. I feel like that's where we've seen the most improvement, but still it's nowhere where it needs to be, right? When you look at this team, it can be a fun offense. There's some fun things, some fun dynamics that you have with Terrence Brown and Don McHenry, who can do things, as guards that Utah hasn't had a lot of. They can generate a lot of, they can generate quality looks through the offense. And, fortunately, when you have a guy like Jacob Patrick who can shoot it the way that he does, it helps. You've seen improvement as a shooter from Seydou Traore from what he's been in his career. And I think you're finding guys that can, knock down shots and all that. But where it's got to start making, where Utah has to start making bigger, more improvement and bigger strides is on that defensive end of the floor. They only have a scoring difference of, I think they're +2, 2.3 in the scoring margin, which is towards the bottom of the Big 12. And it's because in large part of the defense. I think they're 13th in the conference in points allowed. And obviously with the schedule that they've played so far, that's pretty concerning. So, it's got to continue to get better on that end of the floor. And I'm encouraged because I feel like after that Grand Canyon game, I have seen improvement. I have seen greater effort and greater attention to detail on that end of the floor.
Yeah, I think, and Alex says this all the time, right? Like your effort is one of the things that you can control.
Yep.
This team's not going to out-talent very many people left on the schedule. But if we've learned anything from their first 9 games, it's that the teams that came into the Huntsman with less talent came in with better effort and gave themselves a chance to win, whether it was Sam Houston or Cal Poly, you know what I mean? Like Weber State, and that's what Utah has to bring on the defensive end. They can't afford to have lapses,
right?
And especially like in transition, and that's one of the things that's been so frustrating is just to see like a made basket.
Yeah,
transition 3.
That was Cal Poly all night.
Yeah,
all 40 minutes. As Utah would get a bucket, and within a couple seconds, Cal Poly's answering on the other end of the floor. That was the frustrating experience. The most frustrating experience I've had watching a Utah basketball game was that one because of that very thing. And, I don't know if you felt this way, but watching this team, watching this group, it felt like they've almost played thinking that the Big 12 logo is sort of something that opponents are going to have to bow down to, right? Like
Right.
that's what
Yeah.
it's felt like speaking to the lack of effort, right? Just because you've made it here doesn't mean that, teams are just going to bow down and roll around, roll over and die on you. Like you've got to still take it to them. And I think those are the lessons that this team, this group has had to learn, is that you've still got to take it to these guys. You've still got to defend. You've still got to, play with effort and intensity. And I think they've started to figure that out, right? Getting some humble pie against Cal Poly and Grand Canyon. I think we've started to see that, but obviously it's only been 2 games. I think Cal Baptist, even though it is what it is, right? Being, a program, I don't know where they're ranked in KedPom, but I assume they're plus 200.
They're like 130 in
okay.
Yeah.
So this will be a valuable test for Utah at 113, I think. I think if I remember right.
Put some respect on the fighting Riley Battens, okay? Actually, it's interesting because Cal Baptist, they were 61 in the initial net rankings that came out on Monday, and they've had a 30 spot drop, losing back-to-back to Colorado and BYU. And so they're like 91 now in the net.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, I need to study up. I have to remember that. Yeah, basketball, they've got a game this weekend. They have an opponent that is worthy of respect and homework. And I feel like that's where I've failed this season myself, because I have not put in the prep I've needed to be prepared for the Cal Poly Mustangs and the Cal Baptist Riley Battens. I need to be more prepared. So that's on me.
That's what I'm here for. I offer my services,
So yeah, obviously you're gonna have a game preview and stuff up of the Cal Baptist game, and this kind of serves as that. But with this being year 1 under Alex Jensen, we're talking about the 9 games so far, but kind of zooming back and even further and kind of assessing, how we've gotten to this point and what's ahead, projecting the rest of the way with conference play, coming next month. What do we make so far of Alex Jensen in year 1, and what do we need to see from him and this program the rest of the way?
How much time do you have? No. So I think big picture, I think, Alex certainly has some really good foundational things in there.
Yeah.
Some culture things. He talks a lot about, in his post-game interviews and his radio stuff, he talks a lot about this is X is a problem, and I think I can help us with that, versus other coaches that have kind of been like, well, that's just kind of how we are,
Mm-hmm.
I think he sees the need for improvement, and I think he sees a path to improvement, right? It's not just, we'll address this in the portal in the off season. And so I think that's kind of a big thing, right? And you see that game to game too, right? Like they make adjustments. There's some things that they'll do well one game or not do as well one game, and then the next game it's a big time focus. Like him getting them to have the amount of energy that they had in that Ole Miss game, second leg of a back-to-back that way, I thought was really encouraging. And they brought that same effort against Cal as well. Looking forward, right, you've got, Mississippi State that's got some dudes, Washington has some dudes, and then you're into conference play. And I think that it's just going to be one of those things where they have to convince these players, and the players have to convince themselves that the effort is worth it, and so that's, for me, that's part of what I want to see. Is I just want to see them continuing to play hard, and they're not going to get every bounce, You know, they're going to miss some shots. They're going to make some mistakes. You know, the Seydou Traore experience has been a bit of a roller coaster this year. But I think he is sort of a microcosm of this team, where it's like the good
That's
is
fair.
really, really good. And the bad is like all of those shots you've seen
Baffling.
of Alex on the sideline
Yeah,
where he's like this, you know,
hunched
like
over,
rubbing
just
his
rubbing the
forehead
temples. Yeah.
yeah. So there's a lot there, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think that that's really important, right? Is Alex Jensen wanting to have the foundation of his brand of basketball, of his culture. He is clearly committed to it, and he wants to have it set in stone what it's going to be moving forward. Now, they may not be very good at it, you know, but I think we have seen signs of progress. And again, it gets back to the defensive end of the floor. We know that that's where it all starts for Alex Jensen, right? With who he's played for, playing under Rick Majerus, going back to the Runnin Utes days, and who he's coached with, starting with Majerus and Quinn Snyder, and sort of being the defensive mind behind, some of these teams that he's coached with. We know that it starts there, and I think we've started to see some of the habits improve, the discipline, the awareness, the mindfulness. We're starting to see those strides being made by the guys that have played the majority of the season. What's interesting is, coming into the year, there were a couple guys in Elijah Moore and Ja'Kai Howard who, for one, I thought were going to be pretty big contributors, and we've yet to see, outside of a couple minutes for Moore and Howard early on, we have not seen them play a whole lot. And I think, just kind of piecing things together, I think it all centers around, that the defensive end of the floor. Alex has talked about it, in his availabilities, is you've got to earn it in practice. And I wish people could grasp, how honest that is for coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Players have to earn it in practice. If they can't trust you to execute or to do something in practice, how in the world can you expect them and count on them and trust them to do it when it matters? So that's sort of the mindset that these coaches have. And for Alex, that's what he's mentioned is, go out and practice and earn it, show that you want to play. And I think that's just kind of where we're at. So I think it would be great for those two to get it going. In that, because I think they can add something to this team.
Yeah, Alex made a comment. It was a couple of weeks ago now in one of his press conferences when he was asked about those two, and he kind of just said, the same thing that you said. Just they got to earn it in practice, but also that their opportunity will come.
Yeah,
and I would love to see that here in the next couple of games to see what they've learned. Right there's a piece of this here where it's like, okay, we're 9 games in. You two guys have been kind of glued to the bench now for most of that time. What have you learned? Can we see that on the floor? I would be very interested to see that at this point.
I would too. And I think the encouraging thing here is, though they're not seeing playing time, they're still, it's tough when you're not playing, but they're still fairly engaged for as little playing time as they've seen this season, right? They're still celebrating when guys make shots. They're still, barking out on the floor, certain calls and stuff. We're still seeing that from them. So it's just taking that next step and really committing to doing the things that they need to do, right? It's always the nitty-gritty stuff. It's the defensive stuff, it's the hustle stuff, it's the team concept type of things where you can't just jack up shots as soon as you touch it. It's that type of stuff, and I think that would be really helpful for Utah if they can, because I do feel like, especially with with Moore and the shooting touch that he could add, that could really help. So I think it really says a lot that Jensen is willing to sit those two kind of getting back to the point that you made earlier, he is really committed to establishing his culture and getting guys to buy into what he wants this identity to be, and not just saying, well, this is who we are, right? I think he is truly committed to that. And, it's unfortunate that it comes at the expense of Moore and Howard minutes, but this is what year one was always going to be about, was setting the foundation, establishing the culture and brand of basketball that you want to build upon. And he's fully committed to it. And you've got to give him credit for staying committed to it to this point of the season. You just hope that you can continue to see the progress that will be needed to, as we get into the Big 12 conference play and all that sort of stuff, where you can be, a little bit more competitive than how you look on paper right now.
Yeah, he made a real interesting comment this week in his coach's show. Bill was asking him about his freshman year and, what his freshman year was like for him at the U. And he said, look, I did my job. I did it as hard as I could. And I basically just went out and set picks for Keith Van Horn. Right. Right.
Yep.
But I think there's something that you can learn from that when you see who's playing with like a Kendall Sanders or an Obamate Abbey over Elijah Moore and Ja'Kai Howard right now, because there is a do your job element to what Alex and the rest of the staff are asking these guys to do. And so that's, if it's not showing up in practice, they're not going to trust you to do it in the game. And, I don't know if I made this comment on my podcast or not, or in the Discord or somewhere, but it's like, if you can't get on the floor in a game like Cal Poly, where the defensive performance was so poor, you really got to evaluate your basketball priorities and take that as a sign that you need to be even more bought in than everybody else.
100%.
And I think that's where we've got to get to.
Yeah, 100%. So, but this is more than Elijah Moore and Ja'Kai Howard not playing so far this season, right? I think we've seen some good things from this squad. Obviously, Terrence Brown, Don McHenry, these guys are the heavy lifters when it comes to the scoring and the volume of shots and that sort of stuff. And over the last couple of games, it's been an interesting, story with them, right? Don McHenry was absolutely everything to Utah's upset bid over Ole Miss. He was the guy that powered Utah to that victory with the way that he was shooting, the way that he was creating off the dribble. With Terrence Brown, he's struggled a little bit. He had his way getting to the rim, but I think teams are starting to figure out that if you cut that off, he's going to have a hard time scoring. So we're getting to the point now where we're seeing some good things, but now these guys are going to have to start countering and figuring out other ways to score and to contribute. What do you make of what we've seen from Brown and McHenry so far?
Yeah, I really like to your point. I loved what I saw from Don in that Ole Miss game.
Yeah,
and I think that him just establishing himself as a legitimate threat will take some of the pressure off of Terrence Brown. You just got to get, they just got to get more consistency out of both of them. Like as good as they have been, they still kind of get enamored with the 3-point shot. They get enamored a little bit with dribbling too much. But I think that those two, that's where it starts for Utah, right? And if one of those two is having a bad game, you're going to struggle. Yeah. And it's going to be incumbent upon the rest of the guys to really lift them up. And that's something we haven't fully seen yet. But Terrence Brown is just electric. Like he is super fun to watch. He's a walking bucket. His next two matchups this Saturday against the Cal Baptist point guard Daniels, and then next week against Josh Hubbard for Mississippi State. Those are going to be really fun matchups to watch because they're similar size, they're similar builds, they're similar type of guards. And then if you can get Don, and his 3-point shot going, he's got such a kind of a silky smooth delivery as well when he gets going towards the rim.
Yeah.
Those two are definitely the catalyst.
Yeah. And, against Cal, it was really interesting watching those. I shouldn't say interesting, but really stuck out watching those two on the defensive end of the floor. And so I want to throw this to you. Would you consider making a change with the starting lineup after what we saw against Cal? Because I think Brown and McHenry, smaller guards, and it's not that Cal, their back court was 6'5", 6'4", like Cal Poly was. I think Pippen is 6'3", and I think Day Ames was 6'2", but they were a little bit bigger and kind of had their way. I'd be curious, would you consider making a move or a change to bring one or both? Not both. You're not going to bring both off the bench, but would you move one to the bench?
I think it's certainly worth exploring. You talked, I remember in the preseason, talked about maybe Jacob Patrick being your starting two.
Yeah.
And I think that Don coming off the bench in a little bit of a microwave role could be very interesting, right? Like, and would give you the ability to, kind of swap him and Terrence out versus like times where they're both off of the floor.
Yeah.
And it's Obamate Abbey, carrying the load as a true freshman. But I think that would be an interesting thing to certainly toy with, or Chapa, if he could get some minutes, just kind of mixing things up there in the backcourt. I think that certainly would be worth exploring.
I do too. And I'm surprised we haven't seen more, experimentation with the starting lineup specifically. We've seen different lineups over the course of 40 minutes, but I'm surprised we haven't seen more because Alex was so kind of, back and forth, wavering back and forth about, what his lineups was going to be and trying to figure out who the best five were. He was very non-committal to any one lineup. I thought we would see a little bit more experimentation with things. And so I'm surprised that we haven't. I really do think after watching, Patrick against Cal specifically, it seems like he's sort of settling in, on the floor where he's starting to make an impact on both ends of the floor. I think it would be a good move to move him to the starting lineup. I also think like you talked about, maybe you go to Chapa Moore and say, hey, we're going to put you in the starting lineup, but we need you to really buy into the things. Maybe that's a way to get him to truly engage, assuming that's the issue, obviously.
Right.
But to really get that out of him, I think I'm surprised that we haven't, but maybe that's something that they do over these next few games to figure that out. But let's see here. What else do we got? Getting into conference play.
Do we have to?
Yeah. Do we have to? Oh, man. Yeah. So obviously still got some tough games coming up to finish non-con. The Mississippi State game, Washington going on the road there. Those are going to be tough. But then obviously you start Big 12 play at home against Arizona, on the road at Colorado, home against BYU, and on the road at Texas Tech. What a doozy of a way to start Big 12 play for the Runnin Utes. As we inch closer to Big 12 play, where's the confidence level in Utah's ability to potentially get some signature wins, right? And I asked that. So where's your confidence level in getting some signature wins in conference play? And what do you feel like the goal should be for Utah in terms of contending? Can they get to, 13, 12, 11, 10 in the conference? Do you feel like that's in the cards for them at all?
I think it's in the cards, but they're going to have to show a lot more than what we've seen so far. And, one thing we haven't really touched on so far is their front court. KD he needs to develop a mean streak.
Oh, man.
Yes. And I don't know what that is. I don't know how you unlock that. Alex has talked at length about how your coach cannot think that you're a better player than you think that you are when referring to KD. And Because I think that he, as good as the backcourt is, I think that KD being a 20-10 guy is probably what leads to those signature wins.
Yes.
More so than Terrence Brown and Don McHenry. Right.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I think they're capable. I do. I think Seydou is a huge X factor. If you can get the good version of him, you got to find a way to get something out of your 5-man. Right. Like, Josh Hayes and James Okonkwo have kind of been a net zero in most of these games. And so, there's a lot that goes into that. But yeah, I mean, you've got, Arizona is probably the best team in the Big 12 right now. I mean, they've certainly accomplished the most in the non-con.
Yep.
Then what was it? Colorado, they're playing better.
Yeah.
They're gettable, but they've been playing better. Texas Tech is actually kind of surprisingly not shown a lot.
Yeah.
But JT Toppin's a 20-10. I mean, you can pencil him in for that in most games. And then, of course, BYU, they are what they are. And so, it's certainly not I think the big thing for them, and this kind of happened last year too. They had a little bit of a gauntlet to start the league play. There's a little bit of the staying the course that they're going to have to do and staying together through these first couple of weeks of conference play, where it's like, well, yeah, look, I mean, they could have brought a team of Utah basketball all-stars against some of these teams, and they probably may lose. So I do think the non-negotiables, the defense, the rebounding, all of those things, those are going to have to travel. Fans are going to have to show up in the Huntsman.
Yep.
I think that's been better, but a little bit disappointing still. Just kind of based on where we thought the excitement level would be for this team and this coach, specifically this coach.
Yep.
Fans are going to have to show up, because otherwise, Arizona's a fan base that loves to travel and take over your arena. BYU is going to try to do that. And so, there's a lot of on the court stuff that has to happen, but there's also a lot of off the court stuff that has to happen.
100%. And I'm glad you started with Keanu Dawes, because, not talking about him and Seydou and what they've meant to the successes this year is a mistake. Like, those guys deserve a lot of credit. As frustrating as it can be watching Keanu Dawes, because you see the potential. Like, I every time he's on the floor, he is far and away the best combination of size and just, talent. He's comfortable for the most part with the ball in his hands. He can drive from the top. He can attack. There are opportunities for him when they move the ball around that he gets a crease. He can get by his man so easily and get to the rim and finish with authority, unlike anybody, anybody else on the floor. Like, he is very capable, and it's just getting him to believe and to buy into that is kind of the thing for him. And he's got the potential. I think you're spot on. He can be a 20-10 guy. His shot is hit or miss sometimes from deep, but he's been pretty consistent from the charity stripe, and he's been automatic inside for the most part. I just think you made the point that Alex talked about, is your coach can't believe you're a better player than you do. And I think that's, if you can get Keanu to believe in himself, he can be an incredible basketball player for Utah this season.
There's a reason that Houston wanted him.
Yep.
I mean, if that doesn't tell you, where a prominent coach with 800 coaching victories, thinks that you could go, I mean, then nothing will convince you, right? Like, you've got to be able to, and I agree with you. Like, yes, Keanu can shoot. He can hit that outside shot. He can hit that three. That's a great element to his game when he's playing as a stretch 4 or a stretch 5. But he needs to focus on getting to the hoop as much as he possibly can. Like, he's just, because he is unstoppable. Cal didn't have anybody that could stop him.
No.
When he did that.
Yep.
And, and obviously, they were a little bit undersized, but there's no reason for him to not be driving, 10, 12, 15
Yes.
times a game.
Yep.
Like that's something he's got to unlock that thing in his head.
They've had this action where they move the ball from side to side, they're setting screens, and then it'll get swung to Keanu on either wing, and usually the defender is coming out to get him, and he's got an angle where he can catch it on the move and attack the rim. They did that a lot early on in the season, and I haven't seen the last couple games, but I would love to see more action like that where you say, hey, we're going to set this up for you. You're going to have this look at the rim from the wing. You need to catch it and you need to go immediately. I would love to see more actions like that because he is just really good. He is unstoppable when he's attacking the rim. And a lot of times he's just unstoppable because of his size, his length, and athleticism. It's just a big time, matchup for him, favorable matchup for him. So I think that's going to be key. And Seydou, I've been pleasantly surprised. I always kind of saw him as sort of a point forward where he can provide a little secondary playmaking, but I've been surprised at how much he's kind of been utilized in that role as kind of a ball handler and initiating things. Like you said, it's been kind of a roller coaster ride with him. He had the great games starting out, scoring 23 points,
Yep.
incredible shooting. We see the athleticism and him getting to the rim. He started to defend, at a better rate. It's just, I think we kind of understand it's the decision making for him that really needs to improve.
Well, and he was chirping with fans in the Cal game. Like he hit 1-3. Guy hits 1-3. It's like me in a church ball game. He hits 1-3.
Hey, who among us, in a church ball game? Yeah,
I know.
I'm gonna be chirping.
Next thing you know, you're Reggie Miller. I mean, so I mean, there's just stuff like that, and part of it you love, right? You love that about Seydou's personality.
Yep.
But it's just like like you said, the decision making has just got to be better. And I think that this team as a whole, right? Like they do have some confidence in their ability to shoot, but like at the end of the Cal game, it's just a lot of passing the ball around and dribbling and nobody attacking. And then you force up a bad shot. And that's the game, right?
I've figured it out. If we can somehow get Seydou's confidence in Keanu's brain and body,
yes,
you're going to have an incredible basketball player.
Yes.
How do we do this?
That's a great question. Maybe we tell them that like we're going to merge their stats or something.
Oh,
yeah. Seydou Dawes. That's what it's going to show up as in the box score.
Oh, I love it. All right. So obviously conference play, it's going to be tough. Obviously aiming for half, if you can make it to, if you can battle getting up to 13, 12, 11, 10, I think that would be, a pretty solid season for Utah under Alex Jensen. Do you feel like this brand of basketball and the culture that Alex is trying to instill and maybe the chance at some positive results the rest of the season, what do you feel like Jensen needs to get done, accomplish, in conference play to kind of feel really good about this team and moving into the next off season and going into year 2 under Jensen?
I don't know if
I know that's
yeah, I don't know if this is even allowed at the Huntsman Center, but Alex needs a court storming year 1.
Yes.
Like, and I say that because, Nico Medved, who went from Colorado State to Minnesota, they just opened Big Ten play because Big Ten does like 2 early games in December. And I can't remember who they played, but it might've been Iowa, but they beat them. And the fans stormed the court there in Minnesota. I feel like that would be something where it would just sort of all come together for Alex, for the fans, for the players to like really understand like what good basketball could mean to this fan base and this community and how good it can get. I think he needs a court storming.
I
Might
love
have
it.
to do it against Cal Baptist, but
Yeah.
but no, I'm just come on. But like, look, they're bringing in enough teams.
Yeah.
You know, in conference play.
You're going to have plenty of opportunities for sure.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's like, you know, it's look, like I said, they're not going to out talent a lot of people, but they've got enough talent that if all of the other pieces come together and it's a good shooting night for a Don McHenry, for a Jacob Patrick, for a Kendall Sanders, they got a shot. And so, you know, I mean, one of the things that I've sort of kind of held on to is like, okay, well, last year you finished 11th. Yes, it's a brand new team. Yes, it's a brand new coach. I actually think the league is a little bit better this year.
Oh,
and you've got 2 fewer games in conference play. So, you know, to say, okay, well, can they get to 8 and what were they last year? 8 and 10. I don't know, 8 and 12. Is that what they were last year?
I think they were 8 and 12.
Yeah. So can you get to 8 and 10, or can you get to 7 and 11? You know, I think that's probably where they need to try to get to in order to feel some positive momentum.
Yeah.
Heading into the off season, they'll have a real firm understanding of what they need to compete in this league, you know. And so, you know, there's certain, but they shouldn't treat it like it's a throwaway year.
Right.
You know,
I think that's the big concern is treating this like a throwaway year, because everybody always brings it up, is the Larry Kraskowiak year, right? We don't need a repeat of that.
No.
Maybe we do, because, you know, Larry, it eventually got things going for Larry and all that. But
they're already at 6 wins. So they've matched that win total.
Yeah.
You know, Dijon Farr ain't walking through that door. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I think, and again, we are seeing, you know, we talked about it earlier, but we've seen signs of progress over the last couple games, and you like the way that this, you know, maybe is trending. Maybe, you know, we'll see how it goes against Cal Baptist, and then you get into Mississippi State and Eastern Washington, and you just continue to kind of monitor the general progress overall. But I do agree, you're gonna need a signature win that you know captivates the fan base. You know, you made the great point that, you know, the fan base does need to do their part in all of this. You go on the road to these Big 12 programs and you see the crowds, you know, for these basketball games, it's a significant factor for their success.
Yeah.
You know, momentum is something that the nerds don't believe in, you know, the analytical minds don't believe, but it's a real thing. When you get momentum with a crowd behind you, opponents feel that pressure. And so it's going to be a thing that, you know, the fan base really does need to show up. And it's important that we call it out now, you know, not only for the fans to show up, you know, but for Utah to provide the better experiences that many fans are seeking. There's a lot of things going on here that are keeping fans away. And it's, you know, obviously it starts with the product on the floor, and fans want to see wins and they want to see good basketball. This is a very proud fan base, and a fan base that, you know, thinks highly that has a good basketball acumen.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say that, you know, but Utah athletics needs to do a little bit more as well to provide more entertainment in game, during timeouts, that sort of thing as well. So, you know, there's a lot of things going on that would certainly help the atmosphere, but Utah will need it in Big 12 play. And if they get it, I think there's a real opportunity for Alex Jensen and this team to get 1 or 2, maybe 3 signature wins at home, where you can kind of build on that going into the offseason. You've already signed your first signing class. You know, you've got some guys that you're going to bring in that you feel are going to add to this culture you're trying to establish. And, you know, and then you get into this next class of prospects in 2027 that you're going to be pushing for, and you're going to have a foundation established. And that's when you start to see more of the fruits of recruiting getting into year 2 with the program. And I think that's where you want to start seeing dividends, but it's all going to be contingent upon Big 12 play, getting a couple of signature wins that you can utilize moving forward to build momentum, getting into year 2. And I hate that we're already I'm already talking about year 2 and stuff. We're only 9 games into the season.
Right. I know. It goes
but
fast.
But it does. And I think it's, when we're talking about a progress report, I do think we need to, obviously we need to keep the big picture in mind when we're talking about this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, because of their TV deal with the Big 12, once we get out of these non-conference bye games, like they're going to be on linear TV quite a bit. And, for better or for worse, you can't have an empty arena.
No.
You can't, and to your point, like this is a proud basketball fan base, but you can't just have spent the last 4 years saying, well, if we had Alex Jensen,
and then
I
not
would
show up,
and then not show up.
Right.
When Kansas State hosted Cal, they had jump roping dogs at halftime. Bring in the jump roping dogs, Mark. Just do it. I mean, I don't care. Baby crawl. I don't care. Whatever you got to do. Whatever you got to do. See if Larry.
The answer to all of our problems are the jump roping dogs.
Well, I'm telling you. Marketing.
Quite the treat, huh? Quite the show, huh?
All right.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, this is one of those like it takes a village sort of thing.
Yeah.
You can't wait for the product on the floor to be to your liking. And the one thing that Alex has to face that his mentor Rick Majerus never faced is a hockey team in town. And that takes, it's like it's attention dollars, right?
Yep.
Like people are only going to do so much. You've always had the Jazz, right? But now you've got the Mammoth. You've got obviously BYU doing what they're doing. Utah State's doing what they're doing. Like you got to give people a reason to show up to your games. Are we allowed to say that they should sell adult beverages at the Huntsman Center?
You could say it
on KSL. I don't know. Maybe that's what they need. I have no idea. They need to make it easier for students.
Yes.
Just all of those things. Right.
Yeah. I think I think those are great points, right? Because you're what you said earlier, it takes a village. You've got to build the village, right? And I think that's the mindset that Utah athletics really needs to embrace is, in order for there to be a village to make this thing go, you've got to invite people in. You've got to get them out. You've got to create that community again, right? You've got to draw it out of the fan base at some point. With the way things have gone the last 5 years, this fan base has become really apathetic, unfortunately, towards the program. Even when they had success, it was just like pulling, teeth to get people to show up. Yeah. And so, it is on athletics to get that next wave of fans, get the students out there, get the young people out there. They do it with the women's program where they're just giving away tickets to these elementary schools. Do that, bring in groups of teenagers and kids to come out and watch these games and just fill the seats. Like that's what you need more than anything else is you just need that presence in the Huntsman again. Don't be concerned about the money, the ticket sales and the revenue just yet. Get the people in the door first. Like that's what this program needs. And like you said, it takes a village, but you're going to have to build the village first. And I think that's what Utah needs right now.
Yeah. I think the biggest mistake they made was thinking that hiring Alex Jensen was the silver bullet.
Was the solve all problem. Right.
And look, I think their ticket sales went up.
Yeah.
But, they weren't able to get, they weren't able to get very good non-conference games, like with good reason, and look, next year, Cal comes to town, Washington comes to town, right? Those are back end of home and homes. But, You just gotta do what you got to do to get people,
Yeah.
to get people in there. You know, tie
Totally.
it to football. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you're a student and you attend 75% of the home games in basketball, then you get priority seating in the
Boom.
must next year.
Boom.
You know,
Boom. There you
I
go.
hand these suggestions out for free.
I know at least a couple people watch this podcast or listen to this podcast. So I hope that the suggestion hits the right ears. But yeah, like that's where we're at with this program. I think, a long ways to go still. I think we're just a third of the way through the year. And a lot to learn about this program the rest of the way. But Andrew, man, I appreciate the time as always. We've gone almost an hour. You're great. You do a great job with the podcast. Let the people know, all the people listening still probably know where to find you, but just let the people know where they can find your stuff.
Yeah, at Runnin Hoops Pod over on X and wherever you get a podcast. It's the Runnin Hoops Podcast. It's a bit of a clunky name, I get it, but I asked and they said you can't have Runnin Utes Podcast. So what are you going to do? I just interviewed Mark Madsen in advance of the Cal game. He had a lot of really interesting things to say about Alex Jensen, about their sort of paths in basketball, kind of crossing at different times. He did take a visit to Utah when he was a recruit, met with Rick Majerus. I would love to know what a young Mark Madsen thought of Rick Majerus. And I'm working on something for the Mississippi State game. I don't know if it's going to come together, but I'm working on something. So keep your ears tuned to the Runnin Hoops Podcast.
Love it, dude. You're doing a great job. I'm excited to pick up the torch with you. I'm not going to take it from you, but I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to help you with it. Once we get past the next couple of weeks with college football and Utah football, it's been a busy week. That's what I'm trying to get
you
at.
And your empty promises, Steve.
I'm trying to push you out is what I'm trying to do so I can get back to making calls and digging on fun football things, because basketball is just a tough convo right now. It's tough, right, man.
I get it.
But we're turning it around, and Andrew, you're doing a great job with what you're doing. So appreciate you hopping on, and we'll do another one of these again shortly, and hop on your pod and all that sort of stuff. So appreciate you. Go ahead, we'll put a ball on this one and call it an episode. For myself, for Andrew, this is the Utah Blockcast signing off.